Right, here we are, week 195. I've already fed the fish. For some reason, the camera died. I've had to reboot it, so they're already fed. Right, so this week, a couple of self-induced nightmares, I guess you'd describe it as. So remember last week I said that I took the calcium reactor offline because I'm no longer using it because I've gone back to just dosing. I'll get onto that in a minute, but so I took it offline. I cleaned it all at the sink, took it all apart, washed it all out with just tap water, and then I leave all the various components to dry because I like to make sure everything's bone dry before I put it back together and then store it. So I had it down that end of the fish room, just kind of sitting on the floor, the bits of the pump on top of my salt bin over there. I came in and thought, right, I'm going to reassemble it and put it away before I either lose a part or I knock it over and break it. So I bent down to pick up the lid of the calcium reactor and promptly knocked it off the top. It flipped over, smashed onto the floor, and as you can see from that picture there, it snapped the pipe. I was like, geez, I think I can cut that clear plastic pipe. I think that's 20mm pipe, and I can just poly weld a new fitting onto it and make that bend back into the recirculating pump. It's just a faff, but I don't think it's quite as traumatic as when I thought when I first did it. So that was that. And the other thing is, last week I bought my salt, so I buy 40 kilos of chocolate round salt, and then I put it in my ICB. So 40 kilos straight in does me 1,000 litres, perfect. Put it in, I think it was a Thursday possibly. I turned the pump up full pelt and it just mixes because the water's cold, because it's absolutely freezing out there at the moment. I think it was -1 when I got up. So I put it a full pelt on that pump and I leave it overnight generally, and then the next day I pump it up. So I came in the next morning, I pumped it up, filled that bin over, sits in the corner, which is, I don't know, 300 odd litres. Went back out, turned the pump off, and I looked in the IBC and there was only less than 200 litres salt water in there, and I was like, where's that? Where's it gone? You know, you just go, I don't understand. I've only pumped 300 litres up. I've only got 200 left, but I started with 1,000. So 500 litres of water magically disappeared. So I didn't actually check the bin before I pumped the water up. I just did it automatically without really paying attention. So what I think, I'm pretty sure what happened is I've got another ball valve for an outlet. So if I just want to get a bucket of salt, salt water, or the other one's filled up with RO, if I want a sudden bucket of RO or whatever, I've got a external ball valve with a little bit short hose on it. And I overfilled the tank with RO water. So I had like 50 litres too much or something. So I just cranked that ball valve and pumped that water out until it was at the level where I wanted it to mix the salt. And I thought I'd turned it off completely, but I just slightly left it open. I mean, very small amount. But I guess what happens, because the water goes under pressure when I turn the pump up full pelt to circulate it, that it's just managed to force out 500 litres of freshly made salt water all over the garden. So I licked my garden path to check, and it did taste salty. Yeah, so that was rather expensive. So now I've got to go and buy another 2 boxes of salt tomorrow and basically fill it back up again, because it's water change day today. I've got 300 litres there, and I think I've got less than 200 litres, so I can't even fill that back up fully. So yeah, so I need to go and buy another 2 boxes of salt. So there you go. What else I bought? I bought some 10 litre dosing containers, which I will be using. So in terms of dosing, I've done, I don't know how many weeks it is of that bolus method. So I've been watching it quite closely, especially the pH, because the idea is that it kind of keeps going up, and then at some point it will kind of asymptote and then just stay there. and it's meant to be reasonably stable. So what happened with mine is it didn't do that at all. So it plummeted after I stopped dosing the hydroxide, which I was expecting, because I think the pH of bicarb's only about 8.5 or something when it's mixed up, so it's not high pH solution. But my pH got to a low of 7.65 or something like that. I mean, very low, uncomfortably low, I'd call that. And it did start to trend up, and I thought, oh, okay, so I'll just leave it, you know, week in, week out. If I do a water change, it suppresses the pH again, because the fresh water's a lower pH than the tank water. And then it, you know, so it sort of stepped down, and then I'd wait days for it to trend back up. But in the end, it never, I think the highest it ever got was 8.07, and it hit that once. And then basically it just went from about 7.75 at night to 7.9697. So it never hit 8 really on any regular. So I thought, it's not working, is it really? So then I did move the dose basically. So I stopped. I was dosing 600 ml at 7 o'clock, 10 past 7 to 7:30 in the morning. So dumping it all in. And then I went back to just doing an even 24-hour dose of the bicarb throughout the day, and it had absolutely no effect on the pH. So the pH stayed exactly the same whether I put all of the Algae in the morning or I spread it across 24 hours evenly. The pH did exactly the same trending. So I didn't really gain any advantage from dumping it all in the morning. The Algae is more stable if you dose it throughout the day. But saying that, if you put all of it in the morning, I was putting 600 ml in, and the swing was only 0.3, 0.4 throughout the day, so you didn't get any big spikes. So I'm sure, you know, a lot of people use that method and it worked fine, but for me in this tank, it doesn't work. So I can't see the point of trying to carry on with it really. So I am just going to go back to dosing. I quite like the idea of dosing actually, so not having a calcium reactor to faff around with, and the mess of the calc and stuff is quite appealing. So I'm just going to dose sodium carbonate for a while and see how I get on with that. So that's really where I am at the moment. I've ordered some plumbing, so I do plan to, originally I planned to put my 5-foot tank that I've had in my basement for ages under this tank and have it as a like a frag tank basically, and it allow me to move that tamarind wrasse which has been down there, and that tank is too small for it really, bring it up. It's a 5-foot tank, so it would have, I think it's, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 5 foot. We would have a decent sized tank, but I think the trouble is I've got to measure it up, but my head is saying that I'm not going to have enough headroom, but the tank is quite short, deep height wise. It's only 500 eyes, 500 by 500 by 1500 I think. But the trouble is, because I've got rails going across on this tank stand, it means I can't actually sit the tank lower, like on the actual floor. So I'm going to lose about 150 mil in height. So I think it's going to be a right nightmare to access the top of the tank if I put it under there. So I might use the crate instead. So I might plumb the crate in under there, and then I'll just put a radion light over it. I'll take the contents of that tank, stick them in the crate, and that allows me to remove that tank down there and then buy another crate and expand the sump. So I think once the plumbing arrives, I'll measure up the tank and I'll decide whether I can get the 5-foot tank in there or whether I'll just use the crate on the floor. Because, I mean, even the crate is quite tight. I have to put my head in sideways. So it's not going to be an easy access thing. And eventually I guess I will take corals out and put them somewhere else or get rid of them or whatever. But yeah, that's my thinking at the moment. I'd like to get a tank under there just because it's more real estate. And my idea was I would fill it with frags and I'd run it on the reverse cycle, and it might help with the pH, and it's just more sexy than having some algae sitting there really if I have a bunch of frags. Yeah, so I'll see what happens, but I've just got to wait for some of the plumbing to turn up, and then I would decide whether I use the tank or the crate. And what else have I done? So yeah, I think that's it tank wise really. It's bobbing along, starting to look a bit better than it has for the last few weeks, so hopefully it'll be back on course. I wonder what happened. Yeah, so my lovely stag, which I really liked, it's like a wild Aussie stag, which was like a sort of purpley colour with pink tips, which was growing really nicely off the rock on the back of the tank, and it was, I don't know, it's like a foot tall by sort of 8 inches wide. It was growing nice. I came in the other morning and it was literally off the rock, landed straight in the torch. It's got a huge torch below it, straight into the torch. So it's absolutely, I've just noticed another. I think it's a fish that just, look, I can show you firsthand the chunks of coral that get broken off. So this is fallen off. Well, I say fallen off, been broken off, and is resting right on the gold torch. So, oh Christ, oh I dropped it. No, caught it, dropped it, caught it. There we go. So yeah, so that's an example of the size that gets broke. So look, it's snapped off. So I don't know whether a fish has crashed into that or I don't know. And that's just made my gold torch go very sulky. So yeah, so my stag is looking pretty rough. And go live over the back. And what annoyed me even more is I wanted to stick it back in the position it was in, which is on the top of the rock, looking all majestic, growing up towards the light. Loved it. I put a whole tube of the CG glue, like the small bottle. I just absolutely smothered it. But because this tank's so deep, I can't see it visually from the front where I want to put it when I'm reaching over the top. So I'm kind of guessing really. And I tried several times to stick it back to where I had it before and I couldn't do it. So then I tried to stick it somewhere else and I couldn't stick it there either. So it's just resting on a rock, and hopefully it will eventually base out and grow where it is. But it looks like I've just launched it, chucked it on a rock, and hopefully it'll grow. But yeah, it's just so annoying when they do that, because I loved it where it was. Perfect spot, growing up, filled a big gap. I've just got a big hole there now. So yeah, it's annoying. But I think a lot of the problems with the corals is these fish just knock them all over the place, which is probably what he's just done with that. Because that sow tank crashes into a lot of stuff when he's chasing around the tank for food and stuff. So I guess that's what happens on the natural reef. It's just annoying. So hopefully it will grow back, but it looks terrible now because the whole side of it, which laid in the torch coral, is just bone white. So I'm hoping it'll come back, but I don't know. And then my barley slimer got bashed as well, so I've got a big chunk of that which I've relocated down there. So that'll probably grow back, I'd imagine. But it's hard to get, unless you got corals like the purple stylo is reasonably good, because that's a very dense coral and it puts out a decent base as well. Whereas that stag, I think, to be fair, it's probably because the torch coral was stinging all around the base of it, because it was just brushing the bottom. It didn't really base out very well. That's probably why it's tipped over. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of anything else has gone awry this week, but I don't think so. Yeah, so I'm just about to do a water change, and I took a load of algae out of the spawning tank because they're growing out of the live rock at a great rate of knots. So I'm still amazed I have 2 tanks that close. This one dosing lanthanum to sort the phosphates out, massive skimmer, roller filter. Still got nitrates at about 30. The phosphates were, I think, 1.5 last time I measured them. This tank measured it, undetectable nitrate and phosphate come back 0. So I'm actually dosing phosphate in this tank. I've ripped out a load of the algae as well because that'd be sucking it up. Yeah, so it's just 2 tanks, very different. It's just a bioload thing, isn't it? There's only 3 fish. And I think those macroalgae, they suck out quite a bit as well. So one of the colonies looks a little bit anemic, so to speak. So I'm trying to. Oh, I found a bottle of trace elements as well, which is just sitting down in a cupboard. So I'm dosing some extra traces into that tank as well, just to help. So this is Replenish by Brightwell Aquatics, who I believe are a US company. Manufactured in the USA, yeah. That make Donald happy. I bought something from the States. Yeah. So I'm dosing literally like 1/2 ml every other day just to see whether it improves that colony. It's looking a bit anemic. But to be fair, it's probably the phosphates more than anything. I need to try and get them up a bit. And I think that's it, guys. I can't think of anything else on the tank front. So I've had a very busy weekend this week because this was the Reefers Network's first kind of meeting of 2025. We all met at IAC, which is a shop in Harlow, Essex, which for me is pretty local. It's about 30 minutes away. Yeah, it was really good actually. I think there was about 25, 30 people from the network there eventually. It was Friday night and a Saturday morning. Yes, that was good. So if you were there and you met me, very nice to see you. And I think the next one is in March, and it is in Auburn, which is just outside of Durham, which is in the Midlands, which for me is going to be probably a 4-hour drive or so. So I might go, undecided as of yet, but yeah, it's nice to meet people in person, just have a chat, and even if you just learn by osmosis by being around people that are talking reefing, you always pick something up which is worthwhile. So yeah, it was good. So I don't think I've got anything else to say, so I think I'll wrap it up and I will see you in the next one.